Good morning, everyone. I'm Lutfi Ramadia. I would like to present about correlation design of educational research. The first one, I will tell you about the content in this chapter. Actually, there are six contents. The first content is what is correlation design and when use it, and the second content is types of correlational research model design, and the third content is key characteristic of correlational design, and the fourth content is primary tools for correlation design, and the fifth content is flowchart of correlational study, and the last content is how evaluate a correlational study. Okay, I will explain about the content in this chapter one by one, but what is correlation design and when use it first? A correlational design is a quantitative design of research in which you have two or more quantitative variables from the same group of subjects, and you are trying to determine if there is a relationship between the two variables or similarity between them, not difference between their means. And when useful for studying problems in education and social science, enables researchers to analyze the relationship among a large number of variables. And but before that, as you for your information, relationship between in this slide, and you are trying to determine if there is a relationship between, it's like height and weight, birth order and years of education, cigarette smoke per day and health care costs, and how close to the front you sit in a classroom and your grade in a class. And the second content is types of correlational research model design. Actually, there are two types. The first one, explanatory design. Explanatory design is research looks for simple association between variables and investigates the extent to which the variables are related. And the second is prediction design. Prediction design is research designed to identify variables that will positively predict outcomes. Now, this one about key characteristic of ERD. ERD is explanatory design. There are six key characteristics. The first one, correlation of two or more variables, and the second, data collected at one time, and the third, single group, and next, at least two score recorded, and correlation statistical test strength and direction of correlation determined, and the last, researcher draws conclusion from statistic alone. Next, about key characteristic of PRD or prediction design, there are three key characteristics. The first one, author states that prediction capability is the goal of the research. And the second, use of predictor variable follow with a criterion variable, and the last, author forecasts future performance. Next, go to part 3 about key characteristic of correlational design. There are 3 points of key characteristic of correlational design. The first one, displays of score or scatter plots and metrics. And the second point is association between scores or direction, form, and strength. And the last, multiple variable analysis or partial correlation and multiple regression. Next, part 4 about primary tools for correlation design. The first one, there is mathematical tools. Mathematical tools consist of product moment correlation coefficient and coefficient of determination, and the third Spearman RHO, and next PHI coefficient, and then point biserial correlation, and the last regression lines. And while graphical tools consist of scatter plots and correlation matrix, and then simple graphical regression, and the last Venn diagrams. Next, go to the part 5 about flowchart of correlational study. Flowchart of correlational study, there are 6 flowchart. The first one, determine if a correlational study best address the research problem. And the second, identify the individual study. And the third, identify 2 or more measures for each individual in the study. And the fourth is collect data and monitor potential threats. And the fifth is analyze the data and represent the result. And the last, interpret the result. And this slide about determine if a correlational study best address the research problem. A study related to requiring the identification of the direction and degree of association between two sets of score. And it's useful for identifying the types of association and need to explain in complex relationship of multiple factors and when researchers use research question. While about identify the individual study is randomly select the individual participants to generalize the result, and the group needs to be of adequate size for use of correlational statistics such as n equal 30. And what about identify 2 or more measures for each individual in the study? Is identify 2 or more characteristics which will be compared of a group measure of variable in the research question needs to be identified. An instrument that measures the variables need to be obtained. An instrument should have proven validity and reliability. And about analyze the data and represent the result. For data analyzing, Pearson's correlation coefficient, partial correlation coefficient, and multiple regression coefficient. While to represent result, correlational matrix of all variables as well as statistical table reporting the R and R2 values and beta weight for each variable. While about interpret the result, there are 3 points. First one, in the step the result of this study are discussing the magnitude and the direction of correlation coefficient. And interpretation will include the impact of intervening variables in a correlational study. And the last, regression weight of a variables in a regression analysis and developing a predictive equation for use in a predictive study. And I think this is the last part. It's about how evaluate a correlational study. There are 7 evaluate. The first one, adequacy of sampling for hypothesis testing. And the second, display the result in matrix and graphs. And the third assessment is, assessment of the magnitude of the relationship based on the coefficient of determination, p-values, effect size. And the fourth is form of relationship and appropriate statistic. And the fifth is identify predictor and criterion variables, and then predicted the direction of relationship among variables based on observed data, and the last, statistical procedure. Okay, I think enough about correlational design in educational research. Thanks for your attention. Good morning.